Hi everyone, and welcome to the 9th day of Spooktober. Today we're going to continue our tour of the British Isles, but today's story is going to take us to Scotland. The story is called That I See, But This I Sow. In the Scottish town of Bowley, there was once a tailor, Sandy, who worked very hard, but he could not manage to put enough coins aside to get married. It happened that the girl he loved, Flora, was also desired by Angus, who was a well-to-do farmer. But Flora wanted no part of Angus or his promises of riches and a grand house. She loved Sandy, and that was that. She would wait until he had put enough by for them to wed, and she put aside what she earned as a lady's maid so that she could marry her dearie all the sooner. Now there was the shell of a church nearby. During a feud between two powerful clans, it had been set on fire by the MacDonalds when it had been full of Mackenzies. Not a single Mackenzie had escaped. Since that time, the church was said to be haunted, and no one would go near it after sunset. One day, Angus went to Sandy's tailor shop on the pretense of having a shirt mended. As Sandy plied his needle, the two men chatted, and Angus brought the talk around to Sandy's lack of money to wed Flora. "Just what would you be willing to do to get the money?" asked Angus. "Anything," answered Sandy. "Well then," said Angus slyly, "I will give you what you need if you spend as much of the night alone in the old church as it takes to sew me a new pair of trousers." Now, Sandy knew all the stories about the ruined church being haunted by strange creatures, but his love for Flora was so strong that he agreed on the spot to what Angus proposed. "Then," said Angus, "settle yourself in the church on the stroke of midnight, and when you've made the trousers, bring them to my door. I will pay you for your sewing and your courage." Angus sounded cheerful enough, but he secretly hoped that something terrible would happen to the tailor, so that he would be rid of his rival for fair Flora's heart. Shortly before midnight, the brave tailor arrived at the church. First, he tested the door to be sure that it would close. Then, he pried loose the latch on the inside of the door, leaving the outside latch as it was. This way, the door could be drawn shut from the outside, not pulled open from the inside. He left the door ajar. Inside, the fire-blackened stone walls were pierced with tall, narrow windows, barely wide enough for a man's fist to fit through. Moonlight shone down through a hole where the center of the roof had fallen in, but it gave scant light. The tailor settled himself in one of the pews near the door, lit a tallow candle, and began to sew. The wavering flame sent shadows dancing all around him. At first, all was quiet. Then, as the stroke of midnight tolled, the tailor gasped. Leaning toward him out of the darkness was a great fleshless skull with grinning jaws and sockets without eyes. In a horrible, hoarse voice, the bony jaws rasped, Cease this big gray skull, O tailor. That I see, but this I sew, replied the terrified little man as he bravely went on sewing. Seest thou this long grizzled throat without food, O tailor? Demanded the thing as more of its ghastly self appeared. That I see, but this I sew, answered the tailor. Indeed, now he was sewing frantically. Seest thou this long grizzled trunk without food, O tailor? Questioned the skull. It was drawing nearer, and Sandy could see more of its horrible shape now. That I see, but this I sew, said the tailor as well as he could through his chattering teeth. See thou this long grizzled thigh without food, O tailor? Said the haunter, stepping fully into the candlelight. That I see, but this I sew, Sandy said. Indeed, he only needed 3 or 4 more stitches to complete the trousers. But the skeletal thing was now towering over him. The moonlight, through the ruined roof, made its bones shine so brightly that Sandy could not look at it directly. The tailor's hands were shaking so, he feared that he could not finish his work. See thou this long grizzled arm without food, O tailor? Growled the creature of bone and light. It raised its massive dead hand skyward with a loud rattle. With trembling hands, the tailor took his last stitch and bit off the end of his thread. At that instant, the thing stretched out its bony hand to seize him. Through its fleshless jaws it bellowed, See this great grizzled paw without food, O tailor! But Sandy gripped the newly made trousers in his hand, sprang to his feet, and raced for the door of the church. Before he got through it, skeleton fingers caught his leg. The nails raked the back of it painfully. Then Sandy was outside and had pulled the door closed behind him. As he leaned against the sealed portal, he heard the fumblings of the thing as, unable to find the missing latch, it began to scrape and scratch at the wood. But the tailor was already racing for Angus's house. Sandy presented himself to Angus, demanding payment of their wager. But Angus denied that Sandy had gone to the church. When Sandy showed the scratches on his leg, Angus claimed that he had scraped himself with briars. They exchanged heated words. Finally, a group of townfolks, hearing the tailor's story and Angus's challenge, went to investigate the church. They found deep scratches and dent in the splintered wood on the side of the door that could only have been made by the haunter Sandy had described. So Angus was made to pay the tailor what he had promised, and was given the trousers that had cost him so dearly. Then Sandy and Flora were married and lived happily ever after. But to the end of his days, Sandy bore faint scars across the back of one leg, where the bony fingers of the thing had scraped his flesh. I hope you all enjoyed that tale, and I hope you will join me tomorrow for day 10 of Spooktober. Until next time, see ya!